Preseason is now done and dusted. We can finally get into the real stuff, which is really exciting. Thanks for sticking with me through the boring summer months with no footy on the screens. Finally, we have some footy on. Recording this just after the Blues hold on over the Tigers at the MCG. What a great way to kick off round one. And obviously our boys are just a couple of sleeps away now from taking the field up in the Goldie against the Red Hot Suns outfield, which is going to be a very tough one. Of course, we are here today to cover off on a preseason series, which has been pretty well received. I really wasn't sure what to expect going into it. I didn't think it'd be quite as well received as it has been. So thank you to everyone who's tuned in across the series and looking forward to rounding it out with a bang today. Of course, some of the later digits do provide the most value and some of the more intriguing talking points. So there's a lot of diamond in the rough players here, which I'm looking forward to discuss. We'll probably try and keep these ones pretty short and sharp. We don't need to spend too much time. We are on the eve of the season as we speak for the Eagles. So I'm looking forward to getting into the real stuff. This is the last time you'll hear me or see me from the home studio for a little while. We are moving into the new studio in beautiful Claremont on Monday. You're going to see some promo for that over the next couple of days on Instagram. Make sure to follow us there at Golden Wings Podcast. Really looking forward to that. Let's jump in now and round out our player preview series with the last 10 to 15 players on the West Coast list. We've had a couple of new additions over the last couple of days, so it's worked out really well that I've held off on this one. A little procrastination has come in handy, obviously, with two new signings over the last couple of weeks. We are going to kick things off today with number 36, Tyler Williams, one of my personal favourites. I don't think that he's going to feature too heavily at the start of the season for us in the AFL side, but it's going to be really fun to watch how he develops through his debut season in the Waffle. And I think that he's definitely one who could make a little bit of an impact towards the back half of the season. Obviously, we know when we picked him up, his running is already AFL standard, both from a speed perspective, but also an endurance perspective. And his ability to get up and back and cover the ground really well across half forward is something we're actually needing. So I feel like he's definitely one that could be in line for his debut at some stage this year. It just doesn't look like the cards have quite fallen his way over the preseason. Probably needs to add a little bit more size, but we know that the running capacity is there, which is great. He really is that modern half forward blend, which I think is going to hold him in good stead in the future. I don't think Tyler Williams is one that we need to rush into the AFL side. I think we've got a good player there. But as I said, a real modern half forward with the speed and pressure element, but also his skillful left boot as well. Really good decision maker, and he's able to get involved in the link chain high up the ground. He's able to score as well when he is within scoring range too, and very good crumbing player below his knees, but also can take a really strong contested mark as well. So a really nice all-rounder as a small forward. Sometimes with these half-forward players, you get the workhorses who are really good runners. They can execute their role really well, maybe like a Ben Ainsworth for Carlton, who run up and down the ground all day, don't win too much of the footy, but they play their role and they pressure really well. And then you get the real impact players who might only have, 5 to 8 touches for the game, and hopefully they kick a couple of goals, whereas Tyler, I feel like he does both and blends them really well, and that's where you find your real cream of the crop A-grade small forwards. Think of a Dylan Moore from the Hawthorn Hawks. That's the sort of player that we've got with Tyler. So as you can probably tell, very bullish on what he can be in the future. But also don't be too surprised if you see him in the team at some stage throughout this season. I think our next player, Malachi Champion, is in a really similar vein. He's another one who hasn't featured too strongly in the preseason match play that we've seen, obviously with the intra-club, but then also didn't make selection for any of the official hitouts with Fremantle and Port over the last couple of weeks. So he's not going to be one that features too strongly in the front half of the season. Obviously had that little knee injury, which worried us there for a little bit. Didn't hold him out of too much training, but again, it's just a little blip in the preseason. He's another one whose running's really good, but he is going to need to focus on building his tank a little bit. And also, again, similar to Tyler, just building a little bit more size in the gym. These guys are going to benefit off a few preseasons just to really bulk up and help them hold their own in the contest. I think they could both definitely play a role for us at some stage throughout the year. So going to be interesting to see how those boys go. They're definitely a lot of fun to watch, and I think they add something if they do find their way into the team, but it won't be in the first couple of rounds, I wouldn't have thought. A player who will be lining up in round one on the wing, it is Hamish Davis, who we're going to cover on next. He's been the talk of the club all preseason, which isn't of a real surprise to me. I think I was finishing up my uni diploma in a West Coast late on in the year as the finals were kicking off, and he was still winning around the club, doing extras, doing a lot of training with some other players like Bo Allen and Elliot Yeo, really putting their best foot forward to attack the off-season really well and then into the preseason. And it's no surprise that when they came back on day one of preseason, he takes out the mass fitness fitness test and didn't look back from there. He's been excellent. He's obviously got that great aerobic power, some nice speed as well when you chuck it in there. He's a good size, so he's been offering a fair bit in the air on the wing, which we've seen through match play, and holding his own really well. Just the one thing that he really needs to work on. It's been the story all throughout his draft journey, and then as he steps into the AFL as well, it is his kicking. Just a very unorthodox technique, and watching him live right up close for the first time at Minres Park the other week against Port Adelaide, it was really on show how his kicking technique is going to put a real ceiling on his game as just to how good of a player he can be, because as a wingman, he really is the entire package. He runs well, he makes good decisions, he's good by hand, he can take a good mark, he drifts forward and hits the scoreboard, he can drift back and help out defensively. But it's just when he gets the ball in hand, you need to be a good kick along the wing. Otherwise, the chain ends with you and all of a sudden teams are rebounding off half back, off your turnover, which we know in the modern game is a lot of teams' bread and butter. So it is a little bit of a thorn in his side. I hope that it's something that can be worked on, because I think he's a great prospect. And for a late draft pick, he's going to be a really strong asset for us in the future. So big raps for Hamish Davis coming out of the preseason. Wrapped for him to get his opportunity on the wing to start round one, and very keen to track his trajectory throughout this season. Fred Rodriguez is a little bit similar to Hamish Davis in great value coming through the draft, but he'll be unavailable for AFL selection for the first half of the season through a foot stress injury. They'll obviously bring him back through the waffle, and personally I think that he'd be a little way off AFL selection even if he was fully fit, but he's reportedly settled in really well to the club and training really well by all reports before he was sidelined, and he's going to need a really strong back half of the season in the waffle if he's going to even be able to keep his spot on the list, obviously out of contract with that 1-year deal on the rookie list, and the 4 extra spots are obviously going to help him a lot. But we do have a lot of uncontracted players this year, and so I'm going to be interested to see how he goes. Obviously brings a really nice skillful element to our midfield, which we're not really heavy on for, with a really nice kick off both feet, which definitely deserves a mention, a decent running capacity, and just a real hunger for the contest and a thirst to win. He reminds me a little bit of a Milan Murdoch, actually, who we're going to speak about a little bit later. So I definitely think it was a good pickup. I like Fred Rodriguez as a player. Obviously, a big chunk of waffle footy in the back half of the season will do him good, and I'm looking forward to seeing how he goes. Next up, though, another really interesting name throughout the preseason. It is Devon Robertson. Obviously, pretty rapt to bring him across as an SSP, signing from Brisbane in the off-season. I think that was a really great piece of list management. Obviously, sort of fell into our lap a little bit with Brisbane, happy to delist him so that we could sign him that way. And he's been named in round one. So it's an excellent story. Obviously, we were interested for a few years and it took a little while to get his head turned, but he's finally made the move now. And off the back of a stellar preseason, we're really hoping that he can come in and fill a little bit of a void for us with his speed endurance blend through the midfield, whether it's on the wing. He'll spend some time inside, and he can also go to half forward and apply his trade there as a little bit of a younger, quicker version of Jack Graham, if you needed an AFL comparison. He was great the other week against Fremantle, I thought, used the ball really well and found plenty of it on the inside as some nice support to Harley. Backed it up again really well against Port Adelaide a week later, which I saw firsthand, and I thought that he was excellent in the contest. His ball use definitely did drop off a fair bit in that game, and it was actually quite a liability through the midfield. So it's going to be interesting to see where he lies. The truth's probably in the middle with both of those performances, and I think that he's a rock-solid player who's going to lift our floor, which is why we've recruited these guys. I think he's in line for a short-term contract extension coming up if he can string together a few games in the early part of the season, which I don't see why he won't. So very excited to see how he goes. I like him on the wing. I like him on the inside as well as a second rotation player, and could even be a pretty handy tagger if we look to shoehorn him into a long-term AFL role, with obviously the midfield building out now with some real star power with Harley and Willem and the like, who are going to take over in a couple of years' time. So definitely one of these SSP signings that I think has a long future at the footy club, and I'm rapt that we finally got him on the list and very keen to see how he goes this year. I think he's going to be very important to our midfield fortunes, which obviously sets up the rest of the team. So interesting watch there. Sandy Brock is our next player, and I was really surprised to see that he was overlooked in round one selection. Today, obviously, he's performed pretty well over the preseason, I thought, as one of our main key defenders, and with Harry Edwards out for the start of the season with concussion, I thought that Sandy would be the first one to come in alongside Tyler Young and Ruben Jinby, who's only just got up and will be playing through some pain with a toe issue, it has been confirmed, over the last couple of days. So Sandy Brock missing out, I was surprised with. It just means that Rat Bazzo is ahead of him in the pecking order, which is fine. I really like Rat Bazzo as a prospect, so it's nice to see that he's finally taking that step toward becoming a bona fide AFL player with getting some selection, and the extended squad has been named. It hasn't been reduced yet, but I'm guessing that Rat Bazzo is going to feature, so that's a great sign. As for Sandy, I think that we'll see him play some senior footy throughout the year. He's gone away and performed really well over the preseason, as I said, added some size, which is nice as well, and definitely something that he had to do. He's a little bit better suited to take on some of the big lumbering key forwards. Obviously has the speed and the athleticism to match as well. I was watching him run live at Optus Stadium, doing some conditioning after he might have been the sub or got subbed out of the game, one of the home games last year, and geez, he just moves so quickly. 1 minute he's running past you and you blink and then he's already 50, 100 meters away. He's just an absolute gazelle the way he moves, and I've been obviously super strong on him throughout his time at the footy club, and I think that he's definitely one who could be a long-termer, so going to be interesting to see how he goes. Obviously a really good depth option and really good to see that he's added some size over the preseason. I don't think he's too far away from AFL selection. Obviously, his partner in crime down there in the 42 is Harry Edwards, who is now a pretty key pillar of this team, and it's really unfortunate that he is going to be missing out of round 1 with that head knock. It happened about 5 meters away from me, and geez, it didn't look too great. You could tell instantly that there was a concussion worry, and I think he's had a couple of head knocks over the last couple of seasons now, which isn't a great sign. I'll be interested to see how he goes when he gets back now this year. With a little bit of added support, obviously they've brought in Tyler Young. Ruben Ginby's been able to go to another level, and obviously Sandy Brock and Rhett Bazzo are competing really nicely and lifting the standard for these tall key defenders. So Harry Edwards was a bit of a one-man band down there last year alongside Ruben Ginby, I suppose, if you count him as a key defender for most of the season last year. So hopefully now with a little bit more added support with him, the backline can gel and that can allow him to play his best footy, because I think we saw there for a good stretch through the mid part of the season that Harry Edwards can be really, really good key defender. He just needs a little bit of luck to go his way with injury. So fingers crossed on that one. Next player in the 43, of course, is Tyrell Dewar, and he's probably one of the most frustrating players on the list for me, because you can see the talent, you can see the skill that he has by foot, which is something we're really missing, but yet the coaching staff are opting to play him across half back where he is well down the pecking order, at the same time that we have a real need for someone to come in with a bit of class, a bit of speed, and a bit of goal sense in the forward line. So it just makes me absolutely want to pull out my hair, to be honest, when I'm watching him in the waffle, playing half back, doing okay, just getting by, finding plenty of the footy, using it reasonably well, but he's not really pressing his case for AFL selection. And with names like Starcevic, Baker, Josh Lindsay, who's just come in, Ruben Ginby, Brady Hoff, Liam Duggan still floating around back there. We've got so many names in that back line who are taking up space, who are definitely not making way for a player like Tyrell Dewar. And then obviously you take a look at the forward line and we've got names like Jacob Newton, Matt Owies, Jamie Cripps, Milan Murdoch. The forward line is just crying out for a player with a touch of class who can come in and be that X factor that we need. And I think Tyrell Dewar can be that. So I've harped on about it enough on this podcast. I won't bore you with too much more, but I'm just very frustrated with the way that he's being handled. And I think that they're basically speed running a delisting here, because he's obviously not going to make it at the Eagles as a halfback with the stocks that they've got back there. So it really does make me question the thought process there. And I'm keen to hear your thoughts as well with Tyrell Dewar. I think that he's one that a lot of supporters can agree on, probably being shoehorned into a position that doesn't really suit him that well. Next up, we've got another frustrating one in Jack Hutchinson, who unfortunately is going to miss a fair chunk of the season. He's about 6 to 8 weeks away with an ankle injury as per the West Coast injury report. How much we read into that, I'm not sure. To be honest, I've stopped really taking the injury report on its merit, to be fair, but Jack's obviously signed a long-term contract over the last couple of seasons, signed through to 2029. There was a period there where he was equally one of the longest contracted players on our list, so he needs to deliver and show a little bit. He obviously burst onto the scene pretty well as one of the top-rated mid-season draft pickups in his mid-season draft and finished the season off really nicely with that infamous Geelong game where we were down by 100 at halftime. He had 25 and a goal and a heap of tackles through the midfield and looked really good, but since then, we haven't been able to find a position for him. Is he a wingman? Is he an inside mid? Probably not. Is he a forward where he was drafted? Can he go back and play defence? That's probably something that I'd be looking at, but it's going to be interesting to see where Minnie wants him to play, because I think we've got some better options on that wing now, especially with Willem Dersma coming in the short term. So he's probably going to have to come back through the waffle when he does make his return, which is interesting because he did have a role carved out for himself there for a long time and his spot was pretty safe in the side. So far from ideal with a very interrupted preseason with that ankle injury, but he's one that the Eagles internally really like. And so hopefully we can see a little bit in the back end of the season and build him up for a better preseason next year. Another player who is going to be under the pump this season is number 45, Finlay McRae. Obviously, we've brought him in as a depth option, recruited to bolster the waffle, really, if we're being realistic. But he has found himself around the mark for round one, named on the extended bench. I don't think that he'll be playing. They tend to announce the debutants when the team gets released, regardless of whether or not they're on the extended bench, as we've seen with the likes of Milan Murdoch and Devon Robertson. So we know that Finn can find the footy. I thought he was very good the other weekend against Port Adelaide, but he does need to improve on his kicking. It's probably what saw him delisted from Collingwood. He can find the footy, but his ball use just doesn't hurt you. So with the modern game, there's not really that much space for these players. So he's going to have to go to work on that. Whether he can do that or not, I'm not sure. He is just really suited to the state league level. And to be honest, I think that's probably why he was recruited. Listening to Andrew McCall speaking the other day, it sounds like that was probably more the plan for these SSP guys. So that's fair enough. He'll be a good depth option, and it is a luxury to be able to have Finn McRae coming in as your 7th or 8th player for a call-up. So can play midfield, can play on the wing, can even play as a little bit of a half forward, which is where Mini's really earmarked him for this season. So going to be an interesting watch. Whether or not he can stick around for a couple more seasons, I'm not sure, but by all reports, he's been very well accepted by the group and lifted the training standards, bringing across a couple of things from Collingwood. So keen to see how he can go. Our next player, though, is someone who has locked himself in for round 1, and that is Jacob Newton, coming off the back of a stellar preseason. He's locked away his spot as a small forward, as I said, in the side, and kicked a couple of nice goals the other week against Port Adelaide and looked like our only real threat ahead of the footy for a large portion of that game. Taking some big contested marks as well for a little fella, which was really exciting. Coming into a contract season, you'd expect that that'd take care of itself again off the back of a really nice preseason. As we said, he's shown that he's able to push into the midfield when needed as well, which is something that we knew when we picked him up. Obviously got a lot of power, a lot of speed, and he uses his size to his advantage, being able to access the ground ball really well. So I really like Jacob Newton as a pickup. He's been great over the summer, and it's going to be really good to see him rewarded with a long stretch of footy to start the season, and hopefully he can take it with both hands and really carve out a role for himself. And again, along a similar vein here, Milan Murdoch has taken over the 47 after being signed as an SSP over the last couple of weeks. And what a great story of resilience it is as a 25-year-old being overlooked in so many drafts, being so close to being picked up by the Eagles over the last couple of seasons and finally getting his chance, unfortunately with Noah Long going down. And he really just comes in and bolsters our ground ball, bolsters our contest work, our speed, our class, and our hunger to make this opportunity work, which I just think is such a great mix when you throw it into our team. I said it the other week when I reviewed the Port Adelaide game. I was watching it and the game just looked like it was crying out for a player like Milan Murdoch, small enough to thrive in the contest and go really well at ground ball. He just has access to the footy in ways that some of our taller midfielders and taller forwards don't have access to. So I was really pleased to see him get the call up for a round 1 debut now, with obviously Noah Long out of the side and Elijah Hewitt missing with a quad injury as well. He'll slot in across half forward really well and again, able to hold his own in the midfield too, which he's shown over a long stretch in the Waffles. So great story, absolutely wrapped for Milan Murdoch, and it's great to see him into the team. As I said, I've been calling for it since we picked him up. I think that he's ready to go and brings that hunger again, which I touched on, and just really wants to make this opportunity work, which is going to see him play some really good footy, I feel. And he's got the speed, got the class at ground level, really good by foot, kicks goals. What more could you want? So I think that we've got a real good one in Milan Murdoch, and hopefully he can stick around for a few more years to come. Along a similar vein again is Harry Schoenberg in the 48. He was cut from Adelaide's list last off-season, and we snagged him along with some of the other boys on the SSP list, thanks to those 4 extra rookie spots. And he's had a stellar preseason and really come from the clouds late into round 1 contention. And I thought that he was probably a lock across half forward to be selected for round 1 before he did obviously get suspended in that Port Adelaide game. Sticking up for Harley, I think, and they've obviously formed a really good connection, which is great to see. A couple of country fellas. So as I said before with Milan Murdoch, he bolsters our contest and the work rate as well across half forward and can even roll into the midfield as an extra depth option. We know that that was where he was recruited as a first round draft pick a couple of years ago. So I'm stoked with the way that Harry's been performing through the preseason. A little bit of a blip to get suspended before round 1. We probably could have really used him coming up against this Gold Coast side, but Milan Murdoch steps in and gets his opportunity. So this is the advantage that we've had with those 4 extra rookie spots. We just have that depth. When a player like Elijah Hewitt goes down, when a player like Noah Long goes down, who we're going to be giving games to first, you've got players like Finn McRae, Devon Robertson and Harry Schoenberg and Milan Murdoch now who can step in and fill that void and not miss a beat and not need to be brought up to the speed of AFL level, having had a number of preseasons in the bank and also some AFL experience for most of them as well. So I'm absolutely wrapped for Harry. Obviously had a very good preseason, and I think he's one that offers a little bit, not just this year, but hopefully for a couple of years into the future as well. And to round things out, we do have a little bit of an exciting one recently signed over the last couple of days, our number 49, Jake Miles Renzi, who actually follows us on Instagram. So shout out to Jake. If you're living under a rock, he was our final addition to the list, we had that one space left open on the Cat B rookie list after we delisted Cohen Livingston and decided not to sign Wes Wally at the draft last year. So they picked up this guy from a basketball background, comes across from Queensland. He's 199 centimeters. He's got good skill, good size and athleticism. It's not like he's new to the sport. He grew up playing football predominantly and actually grew up playing alongside a couple of Brisbane Premiership players in Sam Marshall and Levi Ashcroft, who are a couple of young and up-and-coming stars, first-round draft picks there. So some pretty good pedigree there. I think there might have been a couple of clubs who were interested and having a look around at Jake Miles-Rensie. So I think that it's a nice way to round out the list is to have a look at one of these guys. One of our golden wingers, I think it might have been Kai, did mention that they've got wing/tall forward in mind for him. So going to be interesting to see where they want to play him. Obviously, these basketballers come in with good size and skill and athleticism, as I touched on before, and a whole lot of upside here. He's sort of been lost to the sport over the last couple of years, giving all of his time and attention to basketball. So for me, I think it'll be an excellent result if Jake can go on and play some senior footy for the club. And yeah, I'll be watching his development closely. So that wraps us up for our player profiles. 49 players on the list. It is the biggest list in the AFL currently, and stacked with some young talent, stacked with some diamonds in the rough, as we've probably covered on a little bit more today. So good to get that one out of the way. I hope that you guys enjoyed. It's great for the preseason to be done. And again, as I said right off the top, I'm just really looking forward to getting into the real stuff. We'll be in the studio on Monday to record, and the match review shows will be out every Tuesday. I don't think I'm going to bother previewing the Gold Coast game, to be honest. I think we all know that it's going to be a pretty tough assignment. You guys know me though, glass half full. I think that if we roll out there round one and get thumped, everyone's expecting it, so it doesn't matter too much. But if we can go all right and compete, and even if we dare to dream, even take home the 4 points, then it's a massive win for us. So I'll be watching closely, of course, and looking forward to covering it for you on Instagram and then reviewing it on the Monday. So make sure you head over to Instagram at Golden Wings Podcast and follow along with us over there. Subscribe and follow along wherever you're listening or watching. Drop a like, drop a comment, drop a 5-star rating too. Any support goes a long way and it absolutely means the world. So have a great weekend, guys, and I'll chat to you again very soon. Cheers.